trust the process, but the process has to be something that you enjoy and fits in with you, and be patient. You have to be patient with this, kind of be in it for the long run, commit to it.
Welcome to the Stronger, Fitter, Happier podcast. I'm your host Vin. I'm joined by my co-host Sadie today, and we have a special guest on today. So we're going to be having a lot more guests on, and we're going to be talking to people about their journeys, about how they got into training, where they are now, and just general things across the board on that front. So today's guest is a special person, and it's a special day today as well for her. She's coming on her birthday, and her name is Marium Naeem. Would you like to say hello, Marium?
Hello, thank you so much for having me on the podcast, and thanks for telling everyone it's my birthday.
Yeah, Marium is how many years old?
26. Plus a few.
Okay, so I won't reveal her true age because she's obviously lying about it.
So rude.
No, Marium does not. If you're watching this on the video, you can see that Marium does not look anything over the age she actually just said. But she is over the age of that she just said. So her actual age will be very surprising to anyone watching this podcast. So I'd definitely go ahead and watch the podcast as well. But yeah, the reason why we've got Marium on is she's been training with us for a very, very, very long time. And she started off as a personal training member with me. So before Body+Beyond was a team, before we had other people on here and other people working with me and things like that, it was just a handful of us, and Marium was the first handful. And she has stuck with me ever since. I don't know why, but I'm sure she's going to tell us today.
You're so good Marium, people, what can I say?
Tell the people listening who you are.
So as Vinay said, I'm Marium. I've been training with Vinay for I think over 8 years now, until he divorced me, but that's by the by. And
we'll talk about that later.
We will talk about that later. And I started training in the gym, I think it was about 11 years ago now. And it all kind of started after I saw some pictures of me on holiday. Like genuinely, that's what it took. And so I kind of got back, went to the gym and signed up. And I haven't looked back since. It's been 11 long but really good years. And I think quite a few of them with Vinay. Yeah.
Okay. So before we go into your gym journey, what do you do? What's your day-to-day look like? Things like that. What do you do for a job first?
So I work in the NHS. I'm a clinical scientist and I specialise in radiotherapy physics. So that's basically supporting radiotherapy services in a technical sense or the scientific sense. As with everyone else, for the last year, I've kind of been working at home and I've been doing a hybrid. So I go into work as well a couple of days a week, but primarily it's been at home pretty much a year now because I was supposed to be in Cuba a year ago. Tomorrow. That just didn't happen. So a lot of my work is surrounding supporting patient treatments with radiation.
I tell everybody that when I introduce Marium to them or they ask me what does Marium do, I say she cures cancer. And
contribute towards it. I wouldn't say I personally do, but I do try to contribute.
Yeah, so she does something amazing. She helps a lot of people out, and without her in her role, I guess she probably wouldn't say it, but her and her team obviously play a big vital role in helping patients through their cancer journey. So it's an incredible thing to be doing. And how has it been navigating around that during this whole time, like working from home and doing all that?
It was really tough, actually. It's been very, at the beginning, you kind of feel very guilty because we still had to have a core team of people at work. And the reason I wasn't one of those people is because I was living with people that were shielding. So I couldn't take that risk. And so you feel very, very guilty about it. And you feel that you've got to do a bit more just to kind of prove your worth and kind of make sure that people realize you are still there, you are still part of the team. And then as time went on, we all got used to our roles and what we're supporting in the last year. And then since I've been back, I've kind of, it feels like a bit more normal again. But you can sense that the dynamics have changed. And actually, it's probably good for a lot of the team members, because they learned a lot more in a short space of time because they were forced to. So I think it's been both positive and obviously negatives as well.
And have you found that like your fitness and training, things like that's been impacted by this and working from home and all of that?
Do you know what? I think it's really been a positive thing for me to work from home. And the reason I say that is because I fit everything within my kind of lifestyle. And I think one of the key things, and this, I'm not plugging this, but one of the key things was that you guys really did a lot to support, like you guys being Body and Beyond. You guys put on so many different sessions for everybody kind of instantly, and it all moved online and it all seemed to work really quite well. And I think that having the option of having so many different classes or sessions, etc. I don't like calling them classes, but sessions. It really helped navigate what my year was going to look like, big time actually. And so it became probably the most constant thing in my life over this last year. Like I see Sadie 5 times a week, albeit virtually, but I see Sadie 5 times a week, and it just brings me so much. It sounds so cliche, but it does actually bring me joy. But it also gives me this sense of like normality as well.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Marium, because now you're training way more than you've ever done. And some people think, oh, it's online and stuff like that. You wouldn't train as often, but actually you train more than you've ever done. And it's probably been a big blessing in disguise with, like you say, it's that normality, seeing other people and stuff like that, isn't it? It's a big thing.
Yeah. And I think the positive also is that you have that time out as well. Even though it's on a virtual platform, you've switched off from work, and then you've essentially gone into another room with other people, and it's not just like the 3 other people that you live with, which can, I know a lot of people struggled being with the same people 24 hours a day, whereas I got that time out where I could see up to 11 other people.
Yeah, I think when we first started the whole virtual sessions, that was one of our things that when we spoke about it together as a team, we said we need to be there for people right now. So there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of like worry. Let's be the constant, let's be some positive beacon in people's lives. And I think what it's done, it wasn't that intention, but like what it does for us was have purpose as well at that time. So we have obviously a lot of uncertainty within a business when we can't go to help people in the way we normally do, but having that constant helped us as well to keep going. And I'm like Sadie says all the time, like without work for her, it would have been a very, I don't know, a bit more of a difficult time, because you wouldn't have the routine either, would you?
I agree. I think with me, and people ask me all the time, like we do get it from a lot of members and ask me how I'm finding it. It's the best thing that I could have done. Like literally, like I love training the members. It's something that I look forward to every day. But also it's just that routine, keeping up with that. Like what would I do every day? Like, you know what I mean? It would be a very difficult lockdown for me if I didn't have the sessions and what we do and still coach everybody.
You wouldn't get to see this all the time.
Exactly,
Marium's pointing at her face for anyone just listening.
No, but it's so true. It's so true.
So how did you get into the career that you've got into?
I should probably give a very sensible answer here, but it was fairly accidentally. I'm not going to lie. I was applying for different courses at uni, as you do, and I got to the B's in the big UCAS book, and I got bored. I was just like, B, what can I do? And I found that's not true. Biomedical engineering is where I started. So I actually had an engineering background. And then as I was beginning to complete, I heard about there's a training scheme you can enroll on. So I kind of applied for that, didn't get in the first time round because it's quite difficult to get into. So I went on and did a master's. And after I did that, then I applied again and I managed to get in. And it's funny because I never thought I'd end up in radiotherapy physics. I always used to think no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to do nuclear medicine. Like, this is how I used to go around. And it once I did my training, I was just like, no, I'm going to radiotherapy physics. That's where I'm going.
So that's something that you do, like, you enjoy doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it took, like, you have to kind of keep a really open mind, which I don't always have. I'm not, people don't like change, right? But it's one of those kind of careers that it's very dynamic. Technology changes, so you have to change, and treatment techniques change, and you have to be very open and accepting of that, and be able to kind of adapt and implement those things for your clinic or your hospital. So it's a constant learning as well. Like, you can't afford not to kind of try and keep up with what's going on in radiotherapy, because otherwise you'll get left behind, which is good. It keeps you kind of ticking over and keeps you on your toes a bit.
Yeah, it's like with it, most industries within that kind of background is going to be fast moving, isn't it, with technology developing so fast. When you think 10 years ago, like, now your mobile phone would be more powerful than technology you had in your hospital 10 years ago. So it's crazy, isn't it, like where we are now and how fast. I guess that's what's happened with all the technology, with all the things, as things like vaccines and stuff have been able to be produced so quickly. And it's just a blessing that the pandemic happened right now than maybe like 10 years ago. Can you imagine what it would have been like? Yeah.
And that's the thing with, like, you can take Ebola, for example, because I don't think they've got a vaccine for that. And that was, about 20 years ago that came out. So just things like that. So it has very much changed. But also money as well. It depends on how much money gets pumped into things too.
Yeah, so like when you look at, I don't know, like an area like mental health, very underfunded compared to, like, maybe cancer, which I'm not saying it's not right, like, prioritizing different things within the NHS based on needs, but obviously all areas at some point need to be looked at and be put on an equal pedestal, I guess, because many things are important to the people who are going through it. So you've said about, getting into training and stuff was because of a holiday. But what did you mean by that?
So I was looking at photos, and there was one very specific picture actually that I have it. I think I've got it on my Facebook page and everything, but it was just one specific picture. And so I'd gone with two of my best friends, and so one had taken the picture, but it was us walking, so it was from behind. And my friend was very slim, and then you've got me. And I was just like, whoa. And I think it just surprised me. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I look good in clothes, and I look, I'm fine. I'm not fat. But that picture made me realize that, hold on a second, that's not quite right. And it was, when people start their kind of fat loss journeys, it does tend to be more vanity based than health based. And I think I was very much so in a similar position. But actually, as time went on, and when I found, like, the right coach and the right kind of resources, you realize that actually it's not about how you look, it's about actually how you genuinely feel. And for me, it became very much about longevity. If I do stuff now, it will help me later on in life. And that's kind of, and also I'm a bit strange. I have this real thing about wanting to be really strong. Like, I don't know what it is.
That's not strange.
But I just want to be like the muscles that everyone comes after. Like, oh yeah, she's strong, she can do it. That's very much a big driver for me.
But that's a good thing to have. Like, I think a lot of people get so stuck in the whole, there's nothing wrong with trying to, change the way you look. I know it gets a really bad rap at the moment. Like, a lot of people are like, you should love yourself for who you are and where you are right now. And I don't think that's a bad message to send, but someone who genuinely feels uncomfortable with how they look and they want to change that in a positive light, like they're not doing it in self-hatred, they're just saying I know I could be better, I could I don't know, feel better about myself if I was a bit slimmer. What's wrong with that? Do you get what I mean? What's wrong with saying that? But they're not saying that I don't like who I am now as a person. They're just saying I don't necessarily like the way I look, and I know I could change that, and I have it in me within to change that as well. And it could probably potentially improve other areas of my life if I did it. So that's what you're saying, isn't it? Like when you're going forward to...
Absolutely. I think it's because it is, you do have those moments where you look at something and you cringe. Like we're human. We all have that kind of inclination to be our most, we're our own worst enemies, in that we're the most critical about ourselves. And that's normal. And I think that it's really important what you've said about the new message of, people should love themselves. And absolutely. But the norm hasn't changed. So you're trying to send out this message, but when you look on TV or you look in the magazine, like, oh God, I sound so old, in magazines or whatever, it's only now beginning to actually catch up to the message we're trying to send out, where it's okay for you to love yourself if you're, without sounding awful, if you're larger or if you're smaller or whatever. But it's only now that what you see around you is representing that.
That message is only powerful and only works if the person believes it. And the only way you end up believing that message is if you feel it within you. So like if you feel confident, if you feel good about yourself, if you like other areas of yourself as opposed to just how you look. Because if you just like how you look, like there's always going to be that gap of like confidence, or that lack of like, the thing
Carrying
that everyone
yourself.
Loving yourself basically. There's always going to be that lack of love for yourself because you don't necessarily like other areas of yourself. So I think a lot of people find, like you said, that your journey went quickly to about how you feel as opposed to how you looked. But to do that, like you had to start on that positive, like you realized that even if you got slimmer, you may not feel good, but like most people find that they're searching for a feeling as opposed to an ideal weight. Like Nikhil said it on the last podcast about don't focus so much on like losing 10 kilos, focus on how you would feel when you lost 10 kilos.
Yeah.
And then getting to that feeling. And I think that's the only way to have a successful journey and be doing it as long as you have.
Mm-hmm.
So,
because Marium, obviously, I'm sorry, I know you said you've been doing it for nearly 11 years, like your total journey. What has kind of kept you going? Like that's a long time. And a lot of people would think, oh God, like how have you stayed, like you've stayed consistent with training and stuff like that. What has kept you going?
I'm going to be really honest here. And it was actually something Vinny said to me. It wasn't very early on that he said it to me, but it just stuck for life. And it was, and you've said it in your previous podcast as well, but it's the honest hand on heart thing that keeps me going, is that there's no way in the world that you wouldn't turn up to work because you have to, right? So why in the world is it okay for you to miss a training session? And so I think because of that, it's been the one thing that I'm like I'm almost anal about it, in that, right, I've got to train. I have to train. I can't miss it. That's not even a possibility. It's not an option. So like, for example, on Thursday last week, Sadie, I missed Project Me. You have no idea how sad I was that evening. Like I was traumatized, but I've got to that stage where I'm accepting of missing things as well. Like I think I'm mature enough now that I'm in my mind, I'm like, okay, do you know what? It's okay. It's one out of however many training sessions that I'm going to do in my lifetime. It's fine.
Yeah, and I'm glad you balanced it out with that, because people listening to this may think, oh, like, but what if I genuinely just miss it, or like I'm unwell, like should I feel guilty about myself? And when I say like you should, there's no way you go, oh, I'm not going to turn up to work. What I mean by that is like it's a non-negotiable. But if there was an emergency, or you were unwell, or you literally just couldn't make it, you would not go. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And also the same way as like if you booked a holiday, you wouldn't go to work. You wouldn't go, I'm not going to go on holiday, I'm going to do this instead. you prioritize your holiday obviously instead of work. But that's the message I was trying to send to Marium at that stage, was you need to set it as a non-negotiable. Like, have the same level of discipline you do with training to other areas of your life that you are really consistent in, to try to be consistent in that area. But like Marium said, it's a long game. A lot of people have like an 8-week goal or a certain mindset of like, this is my end point. I'm going to look good and I'm going to feel good and I'm going to be at where I want to be, and then I can just switch off. And unfortunately, training doesn't work like that. That if you want to be strong, fit and healthy for the rest of your life, you have to practice the things that get you to be strong, fit and healthy for the rest of your life, for the rest of your life. Otherwise, it's, that you're just going to have that reversibility effect of going backwards, of not like feeling the benefits anymore because you've stopped the behavior. And I think obviously, Marium, you have mastered that to be able to stay on track for so long. And I wouldn't go on.
It took a long time for me to get to that level, because I think when you first start, you either absolutely hate it, and if you hate it, it's because you're just not doing the right things for you. And if you love it, you actually become a bit addicted to it. So it can go one of two ways. And it took me a long time to figure out that, there's a balance to be had. I've got other things to be getting on with as well. And trying to just rationalize what you're doing. And I was very lucky because obviously you were my coach for however long. And so you set up my program in a way where it could be rationalized, where it was, you focus on this or you focus on that, and it's within like a set, what I feel like would fit into my lifestyle. And even now, the way the online training's working, it is whatever fits into my lifestyle. So you guys do multiple sessions a day and I pick the one that suits me. And so it really, you've got to find what fits within your frame of, your day or your week or whatever. And you then go with that. And like you said, then you make that the non-negotiable because you've slotted that into a time slot.
So like you're saying, having flexibility, but also having like a routine and a schedule has definitely helped you stay on track. Aside from that, like what's made you keep going? You've said about positive, like making it a positive journey. Is there anything like around that you feel that, how have you even done that?
So for me, this again is going to sound super cheesy, and I can't believe I just said super, but for me, it is very much, I've made such like really great friends at Body and Beyond. Like whether you guys admit or not, you love me, I'm your best friend. That's so, but do you know what I mean? Like I get on really well with the coaches. I get on really well with some of the other members. Like that's really helped in the process. It's just that kind of feeling of community. And it just really does sound so cheesy, but it's true. You've found people who can relate to your gripes and can relate to what you're concerned. Like nutrition for me is always, that's like my lifelong battle. It always will be. And I go through ups and downs with it. But I know now that actually there's about 10 other people who go through the same feeling as me. And we can sit there and we can whinge about it. We can help each other. We can kind of say, no, we'll do it. We can do this, etc. So it's that feeling of like, you're not on your own.
I think a lot of people forget the power of community, and like humans are made to be around people and socialize, and I think that's why so many people have struggled in this lockdown, is because that element has been taken away from them. Like me and my partner Sophie was watching a program yesterday with Zac Efron and another guy. It's on Netflix. They got that. Have you seen it, Marium? I can't remember what it's called.
Not yet. I haven't seen it yet, but it's on my list.
Yeah, they travel around the world, and they're on like health journeys, and some of it, like, you have to take with a pinch of salt, like, because it's biased to their opinion, but like that's not what I'm talking about. But what they were talking about blue zones, and me, we've had loads of discussions about blue zones and how I want Body and Beyond to be a mini blue zone, and in our own community of like we become centenarians and like we live a very long healthy life. But one way they say that one quality of all blue zones is the community, like having purpose, having not being lonely, basically helps people live longer, having friends and community and like eating together and all of that sort of thing. So like, why would you not implement that within your health journey?
Yeah, I agree.
Even if you don't have that as a general thing, like you should have it in your health journey if you want to be healthier and happier.
Yeah, I think we mention it quite a lot, but I think with the accountability, the support and stuff like that, I think it would be a much harder journey for people if they were doing it on their own, or didn't, like Marium, you said, like, you know, now that other people go through the same thing that you do, you know that you're not doing it alone. So I think that feeling definitely makes the journey a lot kind of easier, like, to go through, and one that you're not on your own with.
So
Yeah,
like,
I completely agree. And what makes it even more palatable, I guess, is that I know that even you guys struggle. You know, we all have our moments where we all are like, oh, I've got to train, and oh, I've got to do this. But I know that you guys feel that too. So it's not like you're preachers who don't then practice it. You've got the same gripes as us, same issues as us, and so it makes it so much easier to relate to us then, and be able to have that kind of conversation and understanding as well.
Yeah, it's in everyone's journey. Like, you have to look at it like there's no end point, one, with when it comes to like exercising and being regular. With, if you have that in your mindset from the start, you'll probably be able to be more successful. But the other thing is that we're not athletes. Like, we are athletes in our own right. I mean, we're not athletes as like who are going to go compete in a career of doing it. So you don't necessarily need to be like how an athlete would train, like regimented in terms of like never ever miss something because they've got like this thing that they're trying to get to and be at the top of their game. You can treat training in that way if you want to, but for most people it's not necessary. And I think it's that all or nothing attitude that makes people go wrong with it. Whereas if you have that yin and yang attitude that you have of, I'm going to be disciplined, I'm going to do it, but at the same time I'm going to cut myself some slack when I need to, is the best way to go around the fitness side of things. You've mentioned about training though, nutrition, and you said you've had like loads of roller coasters. Last year was a very successful year for you with nutrition specifically, and I don't necessarily mean that because you did really well with your fat loss period, and you know, like, you went through a phase of trying to lose some body fat, and you were very successful. You did really well. You lost a lot of weight, and you were consistent. That's not what I mean. What I mean is you got a handle on nutrition in terms of last year seemed like you were the most in control of your nutrition as opposed to nutrition controlling you. And that's what I mean by successful with nutrition. What made you so like in control of it last year? What?
So there were two things really. The first was so Easter was quite not too far after lockdown began, and I had this real obsession with mini eggs, Easter mini eggs, but like the proper eggs you get, not just the packets. And I used to eat one a day, and I'm like, something's not right here. That's like over 700 calories just going into my belly on a daily basis. That doesn't need to. And as that started, it kind of, I made the realization that, hold on a second, it's just an egg. It's still the same chocolate. It's just shaped as an egg. And just because it's available at this time of year, it doesn't mean that it's not available later on in a different form. So stop trying to use an excuse of, oh, it's Easter. Easter, yeah, okay, fine, but chocolate's chocolate, right? And so I kind of, that was one reason I had to stop that process from happening. The other was, and it's more my personal thing, is I didn't want to run the risk of going the other way with my nutrition during lockdown. Like, I didn't want to put on weight, or I didn't want to get bigger, only because I know how hard it is to then try and reverse what you've done. So I made it kind of not a rule, but I started counting my calories. I started using my Fitness Pal. Even when I went over, I'm like, you've got to track it, just to raise that awareness again. Because I used my Fitness Pal on and off for years, but never as consistently as I have done in this last year. But it was very much a case of, I don't want to be in a position where I'm going to regret having to then try and reverse my actions. So let's just prevent it in the first place. And so that's what helped me.
I think about 4 things you said stuck out to me there. Like you had something that kind of made you go, well, like a bit of a punch in the face of like, you know, a realization moment of something needs to change. You also looked to the future of, if I continue with the behavior that I'm doing now, how will I feel a year later or look a year later or whatever? And it's not, if it doesn't, I say to people, always ask yourself that question. If the behaviors you're doing right now continued for another 5 to 10 years, what would happen? And if you're not happy with it, you need to change course correct. So those are 2 really good ways to immediately start taking action. The other thing you said was becoming more consistent and measuring something. So what you said was, the way I would take it is like, what gets measured gets managed. And a lot of people are like, if you don't have some element of control over your life or what you're doing or whatever, you're never gonna see any real results. That you could take it with anything, isn't it? Like any area of your life. Like you can't progress unless you have some method of control, method of management, method of measurement to progress. And I think with nutrition, everyone's so big on like intuitive eating, like just eat well, just eat healthy. But if you don't have a positive, really good relationship with food, or you're in control of your nutrition already, that's very difficult to do, especially if you're not trying to maintain your weight. If you're trying to achieve something specific, you have to get specific with your behaviors. And I think a lot of people are so resistant or hesitant to start like calorie controlling and things like that, or portion management through some app or whatever, that they don't ever see results. And when they do it as well, they don't do it for long enough. So those are 2 sides of the coin. Like you have to do both. You can't just do it for a little bit and not do it long enough. You have to do both. And I think that's the only way to be successful with nutrition. And it doesn't have to be calorie counting. It doesn't have to be using MyFitnessPal. But whatever your method is, you need to be consistent with it, and it needs to give you some form of control and management over your nutrition. So anyone listening, take that on board. If you want to basically be consistent with any area of your training or fitness or nutrition. One thing I wanted to ask you, Marium, was you started with the whole, holidaying and then seeing a picture. It got you to take action. But what's kept you going? That kind of push quickly goes away once you've achieved that goal. Or even if you haven't achieved that goal, they can fizzle out because, it's not there anymore. So what's your real why?
God, that's proper on the spot, isn't it? I think it's just now normal for me. It's become so ingrained into my routine that it's not, I can't go the other way, in that I can't make it okay in my mind if I don't have some form of activity in my life.
Yeah.
And I think
guess you've been doing it for so long that
Yeah,
positive.
Yeah. And honestly, when I miss a session, I do feel like quite sad about it or whatever. But again, at the same time, I do kind of rationalize it. But I I guess it also helps that I've done stuff that I enjoy. I think that really, except for the split squats and the burpees. But other than that, I love that feeling of, if I've done a deadlift or of a substantial weight, that feeling you get is just like, yeah, I did that, and what kind of thing. And it's just, it helps. But I think also Vinny, you'll remember, I had a lot of back issues, and I still sometimes do, but never to the extent where I had previously. And I think that also gave me a realization that actually you can't take your body for granted. And again, it sounds so cliche, but it's so true. Like I was near enough housebound and almost room bound for about 5 months. And I was very young. So if I'm 26 now, so I must have been, what, about 20? No, it wasn't that long. But, you know, at the age before my 30s, I'm bedbound or housebound.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's not on at all.
Do you feel like something like that literally kind of, you know, when it takes something like that to just think, actually, I can't continue how I'm going, because otherwise how am I ever gonna, like, you're back now, like compared to how it was before, is like we hardly ever get any issues with it, like training wise and stuff. So sometimes do you feel like it took that there, like with your back and everything and how you was at that time, to be like, I can't keep going this way, otherwise how am I going to be able to, you know, live your life how you want to if you were bedbound and stuff like that?
Yeah, no, it definitely did. It very much so makes you realize that, okay, it's like I'm very particular about my teeth, because in my mind I'm thinking, right, these are my teeth for life, right? I don't want to have to get fake ones. But that's the same principle that I have to apply to the rest of my body. I really try and be like, well, okay, well, you're not going to get a new back, so what are you going to do to look after it, kind of thing. And so that's the kind of, it's the longevity. You're just trying to think, okay, well, I don't want to be in aches and pains, but also it's about seeing other people. So people in my family who are older and how they're struggling, and you just look and you're like, no, that's not my story. That's not going to be me.
It's funny how life has a way of humbling you when you take things for granted. I know me and you, Marium, both like spiritual in the way that we both like have a belief in God and stuff, but I see it as like the creator is there to remind you when you are straying off your path, like of neglecting things or taking certain things for granted. I always find it. So, you know, you get reminders or punches in the mouth is what I call them, to tell you that, you know, fix this area. And often so many people are too busy living life to even listen. And if you just simply listen to the reminders, to the warning bells, you get them every day, whether it's with your relationship, with your health, with your fitness, with, I don't know, anything, any area of your life, you're going to get some, forget like the warnings, but like I say it to people, like, what are you avoiding right now? What's one thing that's at the back of your mind, constantly bugging you? Listen to that. Just focus on that voice a little bit, and you won't go wrong, because it will just make you happier. That little bugging, nagging thing in the back of your mind.
That's a good way to put it, because I don't think I ever, because weight's always been an issue for me since I was a child, and also it was very, like, it was made very obvious for me. It wasn't like you know, you get some parents who just shelter their child and don't give them that feeling of like, oh, you're a bit on the big side. I didn't have that. Like, mine was very much like, oh, she's the fat one, she's the fatty. And when I say my family, I mean like my extended family, not even like my immediate family. And you know, that sticks with you as well. And that's because we're humans. You have that kind of, and I think, Vinay, you've said this before, is that you have this, someone said to you, well, how can you be a trainer when you look like that, kind of thing, or a coach? And it's the same for me. It's like my whole life people told me this one thing, and well, that shouldn't dictate my life, and that shouldn't be the thing that kind of directs how I go. But I was a child at the time, you know, that was in my formative years. So it's very difficult to then separate the two.
Yeah. And I think for you, I'm not going to try and talk for you, but, you know, with stuff we've spoken about in terms of like through all of the sessions we've had and the years of like, you know, talking, you've spoken about this a lot in terms of like, this is just who I am. I'm just fat. Like, that's stuff you say. Do you get what I mean? Like and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, if you want to be that way, like if you want to identify as that, then that's your it's a choice. Do you get what I mean? But I totally get where you're coming from, because it's not almost a choice. It's almost like that identity is forced on you when you've been told that's who you are from a very young age, isn't it? And then I can speak to you like that because I know you, and I can understand a bit more of where you're coming from when you say it to me in a session, or, you know, when you're not on track with nutrition. But it's also like not an excuse, because I don't want anyone listening to this feeling like that. It's like, you know, you don't know me, you don't know how much torment I had from people calling me fat every day and stuff. So it's not an excuse, it's just how I live now. But you're choosing to accept that and use it as a support for the actions you're taking. Do you get what I mean? Because you could easily go like, no, I'm gonna prove them wrong as well. It's a decision at the end, and it's a hard decision if you've been told your whole life that you're not good enough, or you're specifically something. Do you get what I mean? But you end up identifying with something as well when you've been told that. Like one thing I identify with is being able to eat a lot. Or like, you know, or for example, one that a lot of people listen to this will be able to just immediately identify with, if you're a foodie. Oh, I'm just someone who loves food. I can never just give that up. How many times have you said that to yourself? Or I've just got a sweet tooth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so does the rest of the world. It's up to you whether you want to keep deciding that you're gonna. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of people. I'm going to keep giving examples unless someone cuts me off here now. So, you know, like one bad one is like where people go like, oh, I'm just someone who can never be on time to things. Where you could just as easily be on time.
You can change it.
Yeah. You don't have to be that person. It's who you identify as.
So
it's
true.
funny about the sweet tooth, because I know you and I have had that conversation so many times about having a sweet tooth, and I'm like, well, I just need the dentist to take it out. But it's just so true, is that that is actually on a more serious note, that is something that I have also tried to kind of not implement but use in my life a bit more, is the whole like not trying to use things as an excuse. And again, like you, it's true, there are so many people who are listening. We've all been through our journeys, and it is very hard. Even there are some days even now where I'm like, oh, but I'm just going to eat that because I want to, and the excuse will be, oh, because otherwise it'll go off, or, you know. But you just find yourself thinking, well, hold on a second, is that good enough? Can you justify that enough? And will it help you? Are you going to feel really rotten after? Like, just it's making that kind of connection to it. And but that takes a long time, and you have to really be kind to yourself in that process. You can't just kind of go one way or the other. You know, you've got to find that balance, but it's not easy. Like no one's going to claim that that's an easy process.
We've spoken about that before as well, haven't we? Like, I always tell you, like, stop justifying your reason. Like, you can just as easily talk yourself into something as you can out of it, and it's up to you whether which side you feed. Like, which voice are you gonna feed in your head? We all have the voices of, you know, oh, don't work out today, or work out today. Whichever one are you gonna sit on is the one that you're gonna do. And like, how many times have you, like last year with the nutrition side of things, your voice, you probably sat on the side of like, you're going to be on it as opposed to you're going to be off it. And you just made that voice a lot louder. And it's just building momentum with that voice. The more you give that voice, the positive voice, more courage, more momentum, more good days, and more on days than off days, you're more likely to keep. It's like a muscle. You got to train it. You got to train that discipline muscle. Yeah. You're never just gonna be like, I'm done. Yeah, like I'm motivated. I'm disciplined now. Like I'm deciding to be disciplined. Like, You have to train it every day by doing it. And there's loads of ways to make it easier, like you talked about already. Focus on the benefits rather than the negatives, because even training has negatives. You have to actually do it. You have to have a shower after. You have to get hot.
You have to do burpees. You have to do split squats.
Yeah. Have to train with Marium. There's so many. But there's benefits as well, and you're just choosing to focus on the benefits. And like you said, make your journey a bit more positive, make it flexible. You know, there's so many things that you can do to make it a part of your routine, that you can do to stay on it and make that voice easier, that you don't have to utilize it even that much.
Yeah. I just wanted go on, Marium. You go. I was just going to say, is there one thing that maybe when you first started out on your journey that you didn't really know that now you do? Like maybe something that you've learned along the way, or like certain things, like maybe things that have stood out to you that maybe you didn't quite know at the beginning, but you do now.
Yeah, loads of stuff.
What's like the main ones? Like the most important things?
Corkscrew your foot in when you're squatting. It's so important. Corkscrew it in, guys. You have to. Like just simple rules like that and simple techniques like that are so important. I would never ever have known these things if I didn't have a coach to tell me or to remind me. People ask me sometimes, why are you still training with a coach? Especially when I was still doing one-to-ones up until last year when we got divorced. But we basically, I get asked, well, why do you still need a trainer? Why do you need a coach? And it's like, because I'm far from perfect. Like, I know that if I'm focusing on my feet, I'm probably slouching my shoulders, but someone's going to be there to tell me, just like in our sessions online, Sadie, you'll say to me, well, straighten your back or move your chin down. Just simple things like that. And actually it's so important, because those are the things that are going to stop me from getting injured, or they're the things that are going to actually then target the right area, or just very simple things. And I think, and that learning hasn't stopped, even though I've been doing this for so many years, it hasn't stopped. And I don't think it ever will stop. It's you need that someone to be checking over what you're doing.
Yeah, it's like I don't even know if you've had it before. We get like, when I've had a coach myself, like I do sometimes online coaching with someone. People always say like, oh, but you're a personal trainer, like, or you're a coach. Why do you need someone? But again, it's the same thing. I need the accountability. You know, you need someone there for the support for you. Like, we're there to support you, but then sometimes who's there supporting me? Like, so I think everyone needs that. You need that accountability, and that's probably why you've done it for so long as well. Like, also,
it's just easier. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, something you don't have to worry about. Like, I don't know, someone could say to you, like, why don't you change the oil in your own car? Like, do you get what I mean? Like, as in, just because you know how to do it doesn't mean you need to. Some people literally do it for convenience. I don't train with someone else that much for accountability. I'm pretty confident that I could carry on training without someone else writing programs for me. One, I do learn from someone else's ideas and theory, and like, you know, what they're doing and why, and it's almost like training for myself, like in terms of staying within my field, because you look at someone else's programming, you can maybe even like look at the justifications, but that's more like a coaching thing. But aside from that, it's more just the ease. Like, if someone sends me a program, I could just open my phone and do it. Or like Marium, you just log into a session online and you can just train. You don't have to worry about what you're going to do next, or, you know, and there's no element of like someone having to motivate yourself to go to the gym or work out on your own, because you've already made that commitment to just logging in on an app and turning up, or like booking a session with a trainer. You just, you know, okay, now I need to turn up because I've made a commitment to somebody else. And people can just use trainers for that. You don't necessarily have to do it for any other reason. And then that can help you on your journey a long way.
And it also helps with sorry, Vinay. It also helps with the flexibility of what your training's going to be, and it also helps with you might be just going to the gym or wherever and just going through the motions and going through the actions, and not actually then necessarily progressing or changing. Like our program changes every 4 weeks or every 6 weeks, and I don't have to sit there and say, okay, well, that's that type of exercise, so I need to complement with it. That, like, someone's done that for me, and like you said, it just makes it so much easier. But I think it's the variety as well that it brings, and that also keeps you on your toes. It also helps you actually genuinely progress and build strength. And I think there are days where I sometimes would be like, oh, I'm not going to up my weight today, I just can't be bothered. But then if someone's there with me and they know I can do it, they're going to encourage me, and I'll feel like, oh, I've got a point to prove now, I have to do it, kind of thing. And
but that you said it earlier in the conversation about, like, you've got that like feeling of, I've accomplished something, like I've lifted a bit more, I'm powerful, I'm strong. But the only way you've got that is because you've put a value on that, and you've learned that gives you a euphoric feeling. Like, if you're someone who just goes to the gym and goes on the same bit of kit, walks on it and just ticks the box of staying there for an hour, 20 minutes, and you have no markers of progress, you're always going to feel unfulfilled by your workouts, because you're not achieving anything, you're not getting any sense of reward. Same thing in your life. Like, imagine your work every day was just about going to work, ticking a box, taking your pay, going home, and then you don't even get to do anything you enjoy with the money that you're making from your work. Like, your life would be very mundane. Like, you would end up hating it. Whereas if you had a bit more purpose in your life, one other thing that centenarians had in common is that they all had a purpose, a sense of purpose. If you have that, you're going to have a sense of enjoyment in your life. And it's the same thing with training. You have a purpose of, I'm trying to get stronger in this exercise, I'm trying to achieve 5k a little bit faster. You're going to enjoy the process. And I think, Marium, you've always had that. Since we've trained together, when there's a program, there's a purpose for that program. You've told me your reason, when you said, I want to get stronger in my back, or this exercise, I can't overhead press like with my arm by my ear, I want to get more flexible in that area. We can make the program a bit more specific to that. And that's one thing that I would definitely say to anyone listening who's not consistent with exercise. Do that and you'll find it a lot more enjoyable. A lot more enjoyable.
I agree.
So, Marium, there's so many different things that we could continue talking about, but I want to be respectful of your time. So
we didn't even talk about the divorce, but that's all right.
Just quickly, before anyone thinks that we were married.
Yeah, people are going to wonder what's going on.
Me and Marium stopped training last year.
It wasn't a mutual decision. Don't spin it that way.
Okay, so I made the decision to stop working as a one-to-one trainer for various reasons. One being that I had a small baby being born during the lockdowns. I thought I might need to be a bit more available at home and things like that, and a bit more flexible. So yeah, Marium made me feel super guilty about that, and just told me that my baby shouldn't be a priority and my family life shouldn't be a priority. No, she never said any of that. But yeah, that was one of the reasons anyway. So yeah, me and Marium had to our long run of training together had to come to an end. But Sadie stepped in, and the second best coach in Body+Beyond took over. Well, she's head coach, so she should be better than me. If she's not, there's a problem.
She's the bestest.
Okay, well, that's a good thing. Even though it does, I'm very competitive, and I want to show her that I'm better.
You're not.
I'll take it because you should be better than me, Sadie. I wanted to close with just basically, what would you do if you were back in the place you were when you first started this journey? Is there anything you'd do differently? So say someone else has just saw a photo of themselves, they're like, oh, I hate that, and I want to change the way I look. What would you say to them? What would you do?
I would say trust the process, but the process has to be something that you enjoy and fits in with you, not what fits in with like a coach or whoever. And be patient. You have to be patient with this. Even though you'll see results, like some people see results very, very quickly, but that's because they've gone all in. Just, you've got to kind of be in it for the long run. Commit to it.
That is a great piece of advice to give to someone and a great place to end. So, Marium, thank you for coming on. It would be great to have you back on in the future. And I'm sure you'll be back by popular demand. But yeah, thank you for coming on. Thank you for helping share your journey and helping people listening to this to become stronger, fitter, and happier.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, guys.
Goodbye, guys. We'll catch you on the next episode. And if you enjoyed this, please leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts. Wherever you're watching this, whether you're on YouTube, on the podcast, Facebook, wherever, subscribe, like, share this with a friend. If it brought you some sort of value, we will catch you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.